I still love you.
Greetings, fellow mortals. Just a reminder saying it's just my opinion is for cowards. Before I get started on this, I'm going to give you the immediate spoiler warning of me talking about basically everything in this game. The twists, the turns, and the endings will all be brought up, and oddly enough, I existed in a very strange reality where the twist at the end of Act 1 was spoiled for me before I played this game, but nothing else was. Because I always go on vacation during the last week of April, and I was a week behind everyone else playing this game, and everyone just wanted to talk about how sad and shocked they were that Gustave died and was replaced by Verso. Thanks, Internet. Real helpful there.
Thank your father, kids.
Thanks, Dad.
So that set the stage for my original playthrough of Clair Obscure Expedition 33. In a way, I was grieving Gustave from the moment that I met him, which fits the entire theming of grief and mourning surrounding Expedition 33. Because I really didn't want to like the guy, because I knew that he was destined to die. But when the game opened up in Lumiere, showing his interactions with Maelle and throwing rocks at the paintress in a futile attempt to make himself feel better, I immediately felt attached to this kicked puppy of a character and really didn't want anything bad happening to him.
I think they're just like that. I think they're just good guys.
It's not helped by the fact that the opening of the game is you taking a trip through the city of Lumiere. The story immediately creates a sense of intrigue with this weird, distorted metropolis facing towards a towering goddess and a monolith in the distance, all while people are obviously greatly upset about something called the gommage, which we don't exactly know what it is at the beginning until we switch over to Sophie, who obviously was in a relationship with Gustave previously before they broke up. And not because they didn't love each other anymore, but because through context and many different interactions with different characters, you can discern that they disagreed about the concept of bringing children into a world which doesn't really seem to have a future anymore, which is very heavy. Also, there's a random mime around the corner that I only barely defeated my first time.
I'm gonna bust you up, plum fum, and then I'm gonna wear your clothes.
That was weird.
And it all builds up to the scene at the harbor where Gustave and Sophie watch as the giant paintress erases the 34 on the front of the monolith and puts a 33 on it instead. The effect is immediate. All of these characters that you've interacted with, the ones wearing the flowers, start to fade away as though they've been Thanos snapped. As Sophie disappears, and without any egregious amounts of exposition and dialogue, you immediately understand that every single year when that number goes down, more people are erased from existence because no one is allowed to live longer than that number. And despite knowing exactly how Gustave's story was going to end, I was fully invested in helping him stop the paintress and free the world, even though I knew that it would end in heartbreak every step of the way. Way more than I actually thought at the beginning, now that I think about it.
But wait! There's more!
And with the story established, and after a night of talking with people who have way more history with Gustave than I ever did, the expedition sets out to the continent in order to journey to save the world, only for them to be completely crushed the moment they reach the shores by a guy who radiates late game boss aura. And you know what? I respect the fact that they didn't let you uselessly try to fight against him here. I mean, they do it later, but they outright say that you have no chance against this guy for a long time. What is this, foreshadowing? I mean, I was on the lookout because of spoilers, but this one was fairly obvious.
Alright, I get it!
Of course, Gustave didn't perish here, not yet, it's way too early for that. Instead, he wakes up further into the continent, and I almost immediately was filled with questions. How exactly did Gustave survive? Who was that man? How did I get so far away from the shores? Why did the man attack us when it's clear that many other expeditions were allowed to get further into the continent? It's almost as though something was special about this specific expedition that had nothing to do with Gustave. Oh man, if only we knew. Hey Maelle, my walking nuke, who is the most broken character from the very beginning, why do you think that this random guy attacked us as soon as possible?
I don't know.
But the story continues with Gustave trying to meet up with everyone at the rendezvous point, or at least see if there's any survivors. Thinking that everyone else had already perished, he tries to flatline himself only to be stopped by Lune, one of the party members. Despite obviously having similar mindsets in terms of science, they disagree about a lot and push each other constantly as people of science, including what to prioritize next. This is especially true when Gustave learns that his adopted sister/daughter is still alive further into the continent. Everything is dropped to save her, like the story is ingraining into us that Maelle is the most important person in the world or something.
No.
After meeting up with Maelle, they continued their journey to the gestural village, filled with odd puppet creatures that inhabit the world and love combat a lot. And it was at this point I decided to throw my head at every conceivable wall possible so that I could get good at the combat. You see, Expedition 33 is a turn-based game where you need to build gauges, strategize, and most of all, parry incoming attacks. No, not dodge. We don't dodge here. Dodging is for the weak. For 95% of this game, I was dedicated to parrying everything because it negates all damage and turns the damage back towards your enemies, and I was dedicated to mastering it, which made the beginning really hard until it finally clicked not long after the gestural village. Basically right before, well, you see, Expedition 33 is a very active game. Most turn-based games like this, with 3 or 4 people lined up in a row, you can turn your brain off for most encounters. You pick your best moves, strategies, and party members, and build yourself up to the bosses. But if you do this in Expedition 33, you're going to have a very bad time. You have to pay attention to your every move, and every move that the enemy makes so that you can parry them. You also have to pay attention while searching the environment of these beautiful, detailed, and very weird parts of the world in order to find things to help you not die. Not only that, you have to pay attention to the dialogue, searching for hints and foreshadowing. Not to mention the mini games, where you have to platform after falling down over and over and over and over again. Now, I wouldn't exactly call Expedition 33 an absurdly hard game. It's not easy, but I have beaten a lot more difficult games. But it can definitely be mentally exhausting for people, especially because of the themes of death and grief radiating from every corner of the game. So much so that I had to take breaks in order to continue. I did continue, but I needed more breaks than during most games. So much so that Acts 2 and 3 took significantly longer than Act 1, despite my needing to understand what was happening. Because after recruiting Sciel from the gestural village and gaining access to Eski, the transport character, you get the twist of the first act, which is heartbreaking.
Walk out the door, you see someone that you know and they ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Throughout the first act, there's a message stated to you over and over and over again. When one falls, we continue. No matter how hard it is, we continue. As long as someone remains, we continue. Tomorrow comes, we continue. And I found that word choice absurdly interesting because this is in fact a video game. And the word continue with video games has a very historic past. Back in the day of the arcades, getting a game over was often met with the continue question. This was done as a form of goading and encouragement.
I can explain.
Arcades wanted you to keep going through difficult challenges. They wanted you to fail, put in more money, and try again. This was the business model. Do you continue? Do you want to continue? Are you going to continue? Was the question asked with a multitude of different layers behind it. It was a form of encouragement, telling you that you almost had it, that if you try again, that you will succeed. At the same time, it was an open challenge. It was telling you that if you stop now, you truly do lose. There won't be coming back from stopping. This level is lost and you'll have to begin from the start. Quitting meant admitting that it was all over. But as long as Gustave saw that there was a single person left at his side, he would continue forward against the impossible odds that was the man who slaughtered his friends at the beach.
Just let me die! Let me die!
By using the word continue, the game ingrained into you to keep going, to keep challenging it, even as the point of view shifted from the now dead Gustave to Verso. And this is a shock to the system at first. You don't know who this Verso guy is. He seems aloof, he seems like he's keeping secrets. He doesn't have the history and the pure-hearted nature of Gustave. How can I trust this Verso guy? How can I like him nearly as much as the guy who I've been through so much with? And the answer is simple. Verso is a clean slate with the party. He has no, or in case of Esky, distant relationships with everyone, allowing you to know your party members better because they now have to open up and explain to Verso exactly who they are. And as his relationships with the party grows, you grow more fond of Verso. Because it becomes quickly apparent at this point that neither Gustave nor Verso are in fact the main characters. They are the point of view characters, the characters that you use to view this world, but they are not the main characters. Maelle is the main character. She is special, she is different, she is the reason you were attacked earlier. She is what makes this expedition more likely to succeed. Maelle is undergoing her hero's journey, but we're viewing it through the eyes of her adopted brother characters. One of which knew her for basically her entire life, and one of which is growing to learn more about her now. And this continues past a bloody battlefield through interactions with odd faceless characters who once again treat Maelle differently than all the other members of the party, and up until recruiting the final member of the party, Monoco.
I've only had Arlo for a day and a half. But if anything happened to him, I would kill everyone in this room and then myself.
And thus the group is complete. The scientist Lune, the free-spirited Sciel, the determined Maelle, the aloof Verso, and the hilarious and adorable Esky and Monoco, who are obviously not human and function differently than other species. But oddly enough, these two seem to fit in better with this world compared to the human characters. And it is after this, and Old Lumiere, that we learn Verso's first secret is that he's not only immortal, but the son of the man who slaughtered the expedition at the beach.
I am shocked. Shocked! Well, not that shocked.
And while the twist is shocking, Verso assures the party that his number one priority is to defeat the Paintress. He is on the side of their mission, and thus they created a plan to form a weapon to destroy the barrier surrounding the Paintress by defeating enormous titans called Axons and giving the pieces to the mysterious curator who is following you around and upgrading your weapons after protecting Maelle during the initial attack on the beach.
Wait a minute! Who are you?
It is through this section of the game where you face the behemoth Axons, reach the monolith, and fight your way to the main body of the Paintress that you truly feel out of your depth. The world of Expedition 33 was strange from the start with the distortions and the impossible happening all around you. Why are fish flying through the air? But nothing is out of the norm in the fantasy genre, and this is an RPG after all, so there you go. But the build up to the end of Act 2 takes it to another level of intrigue, with everything basically symbolizing or mirroring something, but you have absolutely no idea what it could be. Despite following the point of view of the man who knows the most out of everyone and is deeply affected by everything he sees, we are left in the dark, just like Lune, Sciel, and Maelle.
So I am confusion. Why is this one Kansas, but this one is not Arkansas?
But at the same time, we learn more about the characters that surround us. Lune feels the burden left by her parents, who basically thrust their work onto her lap after they died. Sciel is in constant mourning of her husband, who died at sea, and her unborn child, who didn't survive when Sciel attempted to take her own life. Maelle comments on how she felt like an outcast basically everywhere that she went, and that Gustave was really her only family. Monoco and Esky open up about how they missed Verso, and while Verso is obviously deeply affected by these emotional openings, he remains steadfast in keeping everything to himself. all leading up to the final confrontation with Verso's father, Renoir. During a first playthrough, you can feel the emotion radiating from both of them as they stand firm in their convictions about what is right for their family. You do not understand much about what they're saying, but your anger for what happened to Gustave and the rest of the expedition pushes you forward. You feel just like Maelle does. No amount of talking is going to help anymore. Renoir is past reasoning with anyone, which is probably the weakest point of the writing if I'm going to be honest, because at the very least, Renoir could have caused discord by declaring that defeating the Paintress would kill them all. The others might not have believed him, but it would have been worth a shot, especially if he called out Monoco, who knew what would happen. All Monoco would do was just stand there silently, and then the party members would question him, and then they would hesitate.
I'm just saying.
But we have to go with the idea that past trauma and stubbornness made Renoir avoid revealing the truth to the expeditioners, because we have seen in the past that such a tactic has failed multiple times. Plus, Maelle will later be revealed to be only in this world to defeat the Paintress, so she was never going to stop no matter what. Thus, the battle with the best boss music in the entire game happens, and the curator arrives at the end to help Maelle finish the job by gommaging Renoir, in a scene that felt equally just like defeat, just as much as it was a victory. Despite not knowing Renoir, you can sense that he had enough reasons that part of you might have even agreed with him if you knew the full truth.
I have strongly mixed feelings!
Thus leading to the final confrontation with the Paintress, who doesn't come off as malicious and evil, but confused and sad, just like Sophie commented to Gustave at the beginning of the game. Her boss fight is perhaps the toughest mandatory challenge in the game, with several phases, but oddly enough, this was the point where I no longer lost any of my fights. My parry everything strategy was working wonders. I hadn't lost once to a main boss fight since Act 2 started, and I jumped off my couch cheering as I finally took down the goddess, watched Verso's emotional goodbye, and observed as Expedition 33 planted their flag at the peak of the monolith, all for it to come crumbling down as everyone in Lumiere was gommaged.
Well, this sucks.
And this is when everything is revealed, where you know the truth. The Paintress wasn't gommaging everyone. Her husband, the real Renoir, the curator who was helping us, was the one that was doing that. The world was actually a painting created by the real Verso, and we've been playing as the painted version of him. The real Verso died in a fire caused by a mysterious group called the Riders, who baited his sister Alicia as a way to get to his family. And that death led to every single disaster caused in the painted world, which is understandable. I think everyone in the world understands holding a deep grudge against a group of writers. I mean, just look at what happened with the endings to Stranger Things and Game of Thrones. I don't think anyone is ever going to completely get over that.
I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
Overcome by despair, the Paintress, original Verso's mother Aline, dives into his childhood painting, creating a copy of her family and the populace of Lumiere to keep them company in a delusion where the tragedy never actually happened. All the while, Aline abandoned her remaining family, the torn Renoir, the angry Clair, and the deeply scarred, both physically and mentally, Alicia. In a desperate attempt to heal his family, Renoir dived into the painting as well in order to pull Aline out of it, and in the process he's been steadily deleting the people that Aline breathed life into, in a way taking her children, or at least part of Verso, away from her again.
Oh, I made myself sad.
Exasperated by her parents, the vengeful Clair pushes Alicia to enter the painting and help their father put an end to the battle, because while decades have passed in the canvas, mere days or weeks have passed in the physical world, and they need to deal with the writers. During the process of entering the painting, Alicia was accidentally reborn as Maelle, and all the pieces come together, explaining the full story of Expedition 33. This giant messed up family of painting gods created and tortured the people of the canvas instead of dealing with the problems in their own world.
Well, that sucks.
But the battle isn't over yet. Maelle has grown fond of the people in the painted world and doesn't want her real father to erase them all in a desperate attempt to keep his family from slowly killing and corrupting themselves in the canvas as a way to escape the fact that they miss Verso. Meanwhile, Painted Verso, who helped the original Renoir, is convinced by Maelle that there can be a middle ground. Having been immortal and unaging for so long, Verso has experienced loss and suffering through every step of his existence, knowing that his entire life is based on the flawed perception of Elaine's view over her son. After seeing countless deaths and betrayals, he simply wishes to perish and save his creator. But once Maelle resurrects the expedition, he decides to help one final time. That is, until the ending, where he realizes that Maelle is simply going to replace the paintress and rot away in the canvas instead of facing her real pain.
No, sir. Not get out of this chair.
After banishing Renoir from the painting, these two characters enter the core of the painted world. Verso and Maelle are at a standoff. Verso wants the real family to finally move on with their lives, plus he also wants the sweet release of death. But to do that, he's going to destroy everything and everyone in the canvas. Meanwhile, Maelle refuses to let everyone that she's grown to know and love die, but she also has the secret desire to live in a fantasy where she can ignore her mistakes, her grief, and her physical pain, refusing to allow herself or her family to move on from Verso, thus leading to the two endings of the game, which you get to pick, and led to a storm of debates all across the internet. And this is where the game truly broke me in real life. You see, this game is entirely about grief. Every character, location, music, and important moment is dedicated to mourning and how different people deal with their grief. Everyone is sad and grieving someone. Gustave, Lune, Maelle, Sciel, Monoco, Esque, the Gestrels, the Painted People. The Desandre family of painters, their every action is pushed by the fact that they're in mourning and they're not properly dealing with it. And while many of the party members find at least a little bit of peace by continuing their storylines, Maelle and Verso do not. And this influenced me greatly as someone who had significant losses during the COVID era.
You look lonely. I can fix that.
Now, this is the internet, so I won't go into too much detail. I really would prefer avoid giving trolls too much ammunition on stuff that actually does hurt me, but I lost people I loved more than anything in the world, and even up until Expedition 33 came out, I hadn't dealt with those feelings. It was why the game was so heavy for me, because everything about Expedition 33 requires your complete and undivided attention. I had to dwell on these themes of grief, hopelessness, and despair, all of which I had been avoiding for a long time by switching between the denial, bargaining, and depression stages of the grieving process almost constantly.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
But you know what I hadn't let myself experience through the years? Anger. And Expedition 33 steadily made me angrier and angrier with each passing level. At first, I thought it was because I sucked at the combat, but my parrying ability eventually became good enough that I could defeat almost every major foe on the first try. So despite being better at the game part of the game, I was becoming more and more enraged with each passing moment, because with every turn, every character interaction, every fight, every level, every mission, every expedition memory, the game was extending a finger at me and poking the most sensitive nerve imaginable for me.
She's touching me. She's touching me.
I'm not touching you.
You're touching me.
And it all came to a head here. Not going to lie, I was warned ahead of time about there being a choice right before the final battle, so I save scummed a backup file on the cloud so that I could experience both endings in one single playthrough. Sorry, not sorry. And at first, I, in my denial of my own grief, went with Maelle, where she forces Verso to live against his wishes despite giving other painted members of her family a choice, and that I don't want this lifeline really hit home, making me feel just awful. And while most people in the painted world are living happily, with many people, including Gustave and Sophie, resurrected, Verso is in complete misery. By remaining in the canvas, Maelle is effectively killing herself slowly but surely. The painter family cannot move on from what happened to Verso, and disaster is destined to strike again in the canvas, eventually, repeating the entire fracture process, which set the chaos in the painted world into motion to begin with.
Over and over and over.
Okay, Clay, I get the point.
No, you don't!
And while Maelle's ending is unnerving and unnatural, Verso's ending is pure heartbreak with basically nothing happy happening at all. Monoco and Eske embrace him, accepting their ends. Meanwhile, Sciel, who has had a death wish of her own this entire time, accepts non-existent sweet embrace after sharing a silent farewell with Verso and joins her husband and child in non-existence. Meanwhile, Lune, who I had romanced, glared at Verso with pure vitriol in her eyes as she sits down on the ground defiantly and waits for the end, because there's nothing else that she can do. There's no way to fight back anymore. Watching as her lover undoes all of her work and takes away the future she had been desperate to create for those who come after. All the while, her wants, dreams, and feelings weren't taken into account by anyone.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
And then the scene switches to a funeral for the original Verso. The family has gathered with Renoir, embracing Aline, Clea planning the destruction of her enemies, and Maelle imagining the family she had gathered in the canvas behind the grave, all of whom are now erased forever. She is left completely alone without anyone to support her anymore. Physically scarred and without the ability to speak anymore, the only thing she really has left is the opportunity to finally move on and overcome the harsh reality that she tried to abandon for fiction. And hopefully this works out for her, but it's left up into interpretation. I mean, she's very depressed, doesn't have anyone by her side, and doesn't seem like she has a future in mind for herself, so things could end very badly for her.
First, let's get one thing straight. I'm not crying. I'm just sweating through my eyes.
And I'm not going to lie, this is where I shattered. This is where I broke. I'm not going to say that I have never gotten emotional or teary at a video game, movie, show, or book. But there were only 2 times in my life where a video game made me openly sob. The first was The Last Guardian, which came out like 2 weeks after I had to put down my family childhood cat, and that was very emotional for me, as you probably understand. The second was Expedition 33. I don't think that I ever cried so hard at a piece of fiction than during that funeral scene. And then that's when the anger that had been steadily growing throughout the experience finally exploded into my real life. I stormed around my house in a fury, scaring my pets. For the first time, I voiced my anger at my friends, at my family, at the deceased, and even at myself. My wife was stunned, confronting me, and I realized how much fury I had been holding in. Some of it justified, some of it wasn't justified, but it came flooding out, and I openly cursed Expedition 33. I hated it for making me experience the wrath that I had been holding in for so long, and I thought I had been dealing with it well. Normally, I'd channel it into other things, but this time it didn't work. This anger was too deep, it was too ingrained into me, and in that moment, I realized that I was the paintress.
By the gods, what have I become?
I was punishing the people around me and myself by not dealing with my grief. I held on to the delusion that everything was fine, and it was hurting everyone in my life. And that was when I finally accepted that I needed to go to therapy. And it was a long, difficult journey of a year, one of which had many back steps, stumbles, and falters. One of which led to more sleepless nights than I had ever experienced in 1 year. One of which is not completely over yet. But after a year, I can finally come around to say definitively that if you put a gun to my head, I would no longer pick Maelle's ending. I would now pick Verso's ending.
I made a mistake!
This isn't to say that either ending is 100% correct, that either of them are happy. Each ending that you can get is a bad ending. I don't agree with people who say that the painted people aren't real people. We're shown at the start just how sentient and real they actually are. These are human beings who were made, tortured, and killed by a selfish family of painter gods. Nothing about their existence is fair, and it's cruel to erase them for the sake of, quote, higher beings. But if I had to make a choice now, without any better alternative, I would 100% side with Verso now. I would accept his bad ending over Maelle's bad ending.
Well, that's the end of me.
And this hurts to say, actively deleting my party, the characters that I've grown to care about. Me choosing to do that, to put an end to them. But I think that's the whole point of the game. You're supposed to pick Maelle the first time. You're supposed to not be ready for the ending. You're supposed to not want these characters to disappear. You're supposed to feel and empathize with them. And if this situation was real, if somehow on a computer I made creatures which were actually sentient and felt things, the process of erasing them would weigh heavily on me until my dying breath. There's a reason I don't hunt anymore. I don't enjoy the process of killing anything, but I would do it for the sake of feeding myself and my family. Of course, I simply push that burden onto others by buying meat, but that's another argument.
Hans, are we the baddies?
Verso is wrong for erasing his friends and the Gestrals. Maelle is wrong for taking the choice to die away from Verso and forcing the cycle of suffering in the canvas to continue. Verso is right in that the family needs to leave the canvas behind them and finally move on. Maelle is right that destroying the painting is basically killing a bunch of sentient beings. The objectively good ending would be to give Verso a choice, heal the world, restore the people, and allow themselves to live out their lives in peace without any interference from their painter gods. Allow them to grow and develop and to live, and maybe one day they could find a way to transcend the canvas into the real world. Maybe, I mean, this painting magic stuff is weird.
That's right, keep moving!
You know what? Yeah.
Except you stay.
But that's not a choice that is given to us. Gustave's death and Verso allowing him to die, which is a point brought up later, was important because he would have been the one that could have actually talked Maelle into this compromise. He was just a good guy trying to do the right thing, not broken down by his grief into something cynical. He still had hope. By allowing Painted Renoir to kill Gustave, Verso effectively locked everyone into a bad ending, where Maelle was already on a path and could not be swayed through any way other than force. The bad ending depends on what flavor you really want, and considering that the creations of the original Verso, Monoco, Sciel, and the Gestrals never once argued against freeing the segment of original Verso soul from the canvas, that they supported this decision to help their creator's family finally face their grief.
I'm okay with this. Be good, Morty. Be better than me.
Of course, the fragment of Verso soul is up for interpretation. Is it really a part of the original Verso or just an impression? Kind of like how artists leave a piece of themselves in their work. I view it as more metaphorical than anything else, but almost everything is left up for you to decide. So if you think it's actually a piece of Verso that needs to be freed, I would not argue with you. And based on everything the game presents about original Verso, I believe that he would have accepted his painting and his creations being erased for the sake of his family. I mean, this is a guy who died in a fire to save his sister.
Coincidence? I think not!
My only holdover is the painted people, who are shown time and time again that they are sentient, feeling beings who are capable of change and development and evolution. In many ways, original Verso is the only member of the family who didn't bring pain to the painted world. Every other member of that family, including Clair, who made the Nevron enemies, only caused suffering with the things that they created in this world. Elaine just had to breathe life into truly sentient people for her delusion, including the painted version of her family, who faced more suffering than anyone, including painted Alicia, who still had to endure the pain of her burns despite the fact that this is an artificial version of her, and painted Clair, who was forced to mass produce Nevrons because the original Clair hated this copy version of herself. And yeah, isn't this great? Isn't it fantastic that this family brought so much suffering to their creations? But in the end, you are supposed to eventually side with Verso. The game is supposed to eventually end. You can do all the optional levels and bosses, including Simon, that sick, unfair son of a damn him to hell. You can replay the game as much as you want, but eventually you can't stay in the painted world anymore. It's not healthy for you. You're slowly killing yourself by staying in fantasy and not accepting reality. You have to leave and face the real world. Eventually, you have to side with Verso, look at this beautiful piece of art, and simply say, it's time to stop painting. Expedition 33 forced me to face my own grief in a way that I never expected or really wanted. It's brilliant and thought-provoking. I love it as much as I hate it. It's far from my favorite game, even from that specific year. That would be Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, from the sheer number of hours I put into that game alone. But this game had the most influence on me as a person. I am far different now than I ever was before playing Expedition 33. That is not something that happened with any of my other favorites. Video games have changed me quite a bit. My favorites had made me more understanding of differing tastes. They've made me more aware of the broken nature of our world. They've made me reevaluate how I view someone that I consider my enemy. But nothing poked a nerve and forced me to reevaluate years of my life and how I treat my loved ones like Expedition 33. It broke me down and forced me to build myself back up into something better. And I honestly hope that's what happens to Maelle in the story. Just like how Gustave's death was spoiled for me, knowing that Lune, Sciel, Monoco, and Eski eventually die does not diminish my time with them. I would enjoy another playthrough even more now, savoring how brilliant these characters are, along with the thoughts and feelings placed into them by the people who brought them to life. It's okay that they're gone now. Everything must end eventually. It doesn't ruin the experience, what's happened before, the joy that I felt with my time with them. When one falls, we continue. Tomorrow comes, we continue. It's time to stop painting. We continue. Because that's a question posed to us every day. Do you continue? And because of Expedition 33, I can definitively say yes. I accept the challenge, the difficulty, and the goading from what is someone else's effective game over screen. I continue. But what do you think? Did Expedition 33 mean as much to you as it did to me? Do you have a differing opinion? Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And remember, if you disagree with everything I have to say, that is perfectly fine. After all, everyone is entitled to their objectively wrong opinion.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you all so much for watching.
You're still here?
Good night, everybody. Thank you. Bye. Boom.
Do not despair.